We are live. Eric Butler. We are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions. UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I gotta vote for Trump, dude.
It's great here. A lot of fat chicks and a lot of screaming.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate.
Everything's gonna be all right. Eric Guy. Eric Guy. Do you know that song?
I don't know that song, bro. No.
Promised myself I'd stop saying so much. I failed that already. We're in a climate emergency, Eric. I don't know if you know that, but we're in a climate emergency, and especially in areas like Boston, which are not hot. That's where the climate emergency is hitting hardest. And now that you're no longer in Arizona, do you feel attacked by the weather still?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean the weather, the sun monster is coming to get us. I mean, because it doesn't matter, right? If it gets too hot, sun monster. Gets too cold, sun monster. Droughts, sun monster. Flooding, sun monster. Hurricane, sun monster. Tornado, sun monster. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So no matter how you slice it, yes, the sun monster is still coming for us. And that's why I think I've said before that I believe this to be actually the most sinister of all of their weirdo agenda-driven, control narratives, right? Because long story short, you can see a 6'4" tall carbon-based life form and realize it's not a woman. Here, they're always just going to tell you, well, if you just paid a little bit more in taxes, or if your family didn't drive that truck, then maybe your house wouldn't have been hit by a tree, because of a hurricane. And then you have, of course, Ron DeSantis, who for the record, we can run the tape back. I never really was a big fan of Ron DeSantis, but the bar is so low coming from New York under Andrew Cuomo. But the point is, a tree hit his house a couple of weeks ago after Hurricane Idalia or whatever. And you should just see some of the comments in like the TMZ Daily Beast post, like, karma, like maybe the tree was gay. It's just like, dude, you guys are absolutely despicable. I mean, Ron DeSantis is a bot. He's some might say Republican Chat GPT, but it's like, dude, these people, they take any instance to like throw shots at their political opponent who they don't even know why they hate.
Shout out YouTube for demonetizing us immediately again, as we say every week.
The banner, right? Because now climate comes with a banner.
Yes, we will get that too, but I think we should just label it demonetized before. I wish there was a way we could say, yes, we know we're demonetized, automatically review it. Every week, as we mentioned, demonetized. Every Wednesday or Thursday, remonetized after the Steam is taken out. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you're on Rumble, give us a thumbs up and subscribe there. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, and many others, please give us a 5-star review.
Twitch.
Share it to your IG story if you can. Twitch, Getter, Twitter, or X, as they say it. DMX, rest his soul, should be protesting that. First story, Eric, since we mentioned the climate, we can get to the Boston mayor. Now, she is very progressive. She's got a progressive plan.
Oh, she Asian lady, yes.
Chinese lady, Michelle Wu. She declared a heat emergency at 86 degrees. And of course, there is a hidden agenda behind this. She declared the emergency somewhere around the morning of Thursday with a press release that said it was going to get up into the mid-90s. So we need to declare a climate emergency. All the comments on this story were, I live in Texas, it's 104 right now, Arizona, everywhere else, Florida, it's 95. The great part about this is when she declared this at 86 degrees, it never even reached the highs that they said it was going to reach. It got up to like 93, and the next day, I believe it rained in Boston. So they declared this emergency for weather that's kind of hot at the beginning of September. And I think a lot of the places in the Northeast, we got a wave where it was back up to like 90 something for 3 days, and now it's cooled down again. Luckily, when I went to a baseball game the other day, it was cooled down. But she says high temperatures will reach into the 90s, with the heat index expected to reach the high 90s. It didn't. And then immediately, Eric, the impacts of climate change are more palpable than ever, with extreme heat posing risk to our communities. Although extreme heat affects blah, 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 let's all make our lives worse, is basically what she's saying. So when she did that, of course, made the note of the fact that the weather was only 86 at the time and she was out checking in on these schools. Why did she do this, Eric? You got to believe that she doesn't actually believe that 86 is boiling temperatures, because it isn't. You got to believe there's something else behind this. And there is. There's an obvious connection made here with why she declared this. So Boston, they realized a couple of years ago that none of their schools had air conditioning for some reason, which was normal for a lot of people growing up, not me. Even though it got really hot in there anyways. So they had 3,000 air conditioning units installed in the last year into their schools, because I guess they had none forever. But 14 of the schools still didn't have it. Their electrical system is terrible, I guess. So there's a bunch of closures. They're sending kids home early because, if you've ever been in an elementary school or a high school, these old buildings, they get really hot because there's poor ventilation. If it was built a long time ago, there's 30 people in a room, et cetera, et cetera. So there's kids being sent home early, stuff like that. So we can't mention that it's because we haven't installed air conditioning units yet. It's because of climate change. So she's going around checking in all these schools that haven't got air conditioning units installed, and she's using the fact that it's hot as hell in these schools, to say, look at this climate emergency. Look how hot it is. Look how much it's getting so hot that we have to send kids home from school. This is outrageous. We have to do something. And of course, that was her actual plot. It's very mean, very sinister, and we know that Democrats like to operate off of being mean. All the rules we see in our life right now are based off being mean. Oh, you can't be on Twitter if you're too mean. You can't misgender somebody that's mean. You can't, make a homeless person move where they're staying because that's mean. You can't stop somebody from breaking into your house because that's mean. Everything's centered around that, so she has to turn this easily solvable situation, which is we might actually have to spend money on building new schools or somehow gutting out their electrical system and redoing it, which they had, of course, all summer to do and didn't do it. Actually, it's just the climate. So I'll shift back to what her plan is here, and we'll hear what you have to say about it, Eric. The city has been engaging in a variety of projects to support extreme heat mitigation and improved health for residents. One project is to ban fossil fuels in all new city buildings. After teaming up, and this is where it gets insane, their city actually has a director of the Green New Deal. That's a position in the city of Boston. And they announced that by executive order. And she's also got this other thing that we'll look at that's insane, which is called the Heat Plan, which she described in her very own words as 26 strategies that will help build a more just, equitable, and resilient Boston. So heat impact here. So I just want to scroll through the jargon on this page, Eric, and get your commentary on it. And this is clear. This is sincerely one of the worst written things I've ever seen in terms of a progressive left-wing proposal on something. You know how when somebody says something like this, you can kind of predict, oh, it's just going to be all jargon that means nothing. This is literally an entire page of that, and it's worse than I've ever seen. You just scroll through together, and this is supposed to be about making the weather cooler. Together, we can build a more just, equitable, and resilient Boston. Scroll down. Key takeaways. Through leadership and collaboration, we can prepare our communities, buildings, and infrastructure and natural spaces for the impacts of climate change.
Okay.
Boston's already experiencing the effects of climate change. We'll experience hotter summers. Preparing for hotter summers is critical. We must continue to prepare for both in long and near and long term, Eric. The entire city of Boston is a heat island. Not everyone experiences a hot day in the same way. Equitable heat resilience. How we build climate resilience matters. For injustice and systemic injustice and inequity, Eric. Prepare for hotter summers provides multiple benefits. Together we can build a more just, equitable. There are zero solutions on this entire page.
Well, of course there's no solutions because there's no problem. Okay. This thing, this climate hysteria is obviously one of the most sinister. I mean, look, I go back and forth all the time because quite obviously mutilating children and cramming LGBT, CIAQ, BBQ, whatever into schools is incredibly insidious. But again, you can see those things. Kids know, right? Like we can run the classic clips of whatever, some old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, like boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. You can see that stuff. A little kid can see that stuff. So this is in the wind, right? This is an invisible monster, or the sun monster, as I like to call him. But first of all, I think you once again are trying to maybe pretend that this woman is like, yeah, it's silly, it doesn't make sense, but you're still giving her the benefit of the doubt, trying to give us the impression that any of it, like that she goes home and thinks she's doing a good thing. She knows she's a grown woman. She's not stupid. She knows how manipulative this entire thing is. She knows exactly what she's doing, which is obviously why I used to jump back and forth between incompetency and stupid, or incompetency and evil. But yeah, it's very clear now that this is all evil. But I'm just, this is absolutely through the roof, because there's several things with this climate change hysteria. First of all, we can, even in the word equitable that's used in that piece of jargon or whatever, right? Like, how, it doesn't make any sense. We're constantly told that it wasn't that long ago. I think we're both old enough to remember a point in time where it was called global warming, that we're told would affect the whole world, the entire world, China, India, the UK, Australia, everybody, the whole world. But then also somehow it affects communities of color, and we need to be equitable, right? I mean, that's the first thing. And we can fix it probably one way or another. The way to fix the problem that they just created by spouting some nonsensical words is, of course, to pay more in taxes. And this also is right in line with what we heard from an old Project Veritas report, I believe it was, right? Like when Rona goes away, sort of, what is CNN going to do? Oh, we're going to ramp up the climate hysteria, right? And so we're watching that happen as they try to bring back Rona hysteria on top of it to kill two birds with one stone. And I don't know if you were able to download that video I sent you from a local Bay Area news report where this quote-unquote doctor, this UCSF doctor who's clearly a paid-off shill, he barely even speaks English, is saying that, well, I think now in the summer times, we're going to see a spike in COVID because climate change is forcing people indoors. So what he's trying to say is that the climate crisis is forcing people indoors because it's hot in the summer, and people being indoors next to each other is going to cause a spike in Rona. All the while, you have crazy people on Reddit who are telling us that cold you have, that might be Rona. It's like, well, you don't even realize what you're saying? Is that you got sick? I mean, it's all absolutely through the roof. And these very same climate hoaxsters or hucksters or whatever, these climate scam artists, these are the same people. So they want you to believe that the climate is changing and we can fix it if you A, pay more in taxes, B, you don't drive a truck, and C, the cows don't fart or whatever. Those very same people also want you to believe that the same air is deadly because Rona is floating around in the air and you should be very scared of that, and it has nothing to do with the election cycle. And they also, that very same group of people, because we know that it's highly likely they are not going to budge from any of the agendas. So we know that those very same people are likely to also tell you that a little boy can become a little girl if he just so thinks it, or if he likes a stereotypical girl thing. But we're also told that the stereotypical girl things don't make a girl a girl. It's all completely through the roof. And last thing here, this is incredibly triggering, I'm sorry, but the last thing here is, again, out in California, Senator Scott Wiener is posting on his social medias recently in the past day or so that there's big climate bills coming down the pipe. So this man is telling his quote unquote followers that he's going to draft up a bill and make another law or something in California that's going to change the weather somehow. And this coming from a man who believes that children can just change their gender. And he also thinks that if you pay junkies and gift cards, they're going to stay clean. I mean, this is all absolutely through the roof.
Well, I just want to point out here so that people see as evidence how full of nonsense these plans actually are. I just scrolled through while you're talking and 14 pages of this plan, and it says absolutely nothing. And the very few ideas that they put in cost almost nothing. Operations and communications, extreme temperatures response task force, preheat.
Look. This is good. This is obviously somebody creating a job for themselves, right? So somebody got paid to create this PDF. It doesn't mean anything. But also, weren't we just told just the other week that fans that we need to not have fans
because they cost too much money.
So
let me read some of these terrible.
Okay.
Let me read some of these terrible ideas. I just want people to see what actually they're calling themselves a Green New Deal city. I just want people to actually see with their own eyes, their own plans and how stupid they are. Citywide cooling network, enhanced and expanded city-run cooling centers. So that's literally just a place where you go outside of your home where they'll have air conditioning because they don't want you to have
overrun by homeless people. It's only
of course.
Okay.
Expanded community climate leadership, extreme temperature plans for outdoor workers. We can keep going here. Cool main streets. They wanted to plant trees. They want to put canopies out, like literally fabrics. They want to expand a water fountain, like a drinking fountain network. Like these are the worst plans anyone could ever come up with, and they're saying how great it is, how they're gonna fight climate change by putting shade on the street and drinking fountains, and we're going to create awareness and education, and we're going to point out how these neighborhoods of color are hotter than the other ones, so it's unjust. Like none of this stuff, it's written like by the person in like when you have to write something in school, Eric, and you're just like, I'm 500 words short of the marker I'm supposed to get, and you say the plans of the strategies are working towards getting to the goals of the key initiatives. That's what this all is. And they've got a bunch of documents justifying how they can plant more trees and put up fabric canopies in community centers.
And this is all for 86 degrees.
This is all for 86 degrees, Eric. And not only is nobody going to click on this to see how stupid it is, but they're going to just say that this very thing that exists justifies them talking about the extreme weather. And they're going up to the podium and saying, extreme weather, we're all dying from heat. We have a great plan to fix it so we can keep taking your money. And then their plan is absolute garbage because one, nothing's actually happening. Two, they don't actually need to do anything. And three, it's all just to continue saying that, other people in politics are doing the wrong thing. They're not doing anything either. Anyone who's 7 years old and up can say, I need water, trees, and shade. Like, this isn't a plan. And this is one of the forefront cities for it, Eric. Boston, Massachusetts, with a very progressive mayor who hires a person to have a Green New Deal director. And this is the best they can come up with. They have no actual things they're fighting against, and they have no actual plan.
Yes, and all for 86 degrees.
And this is $39 per lifetime of a ceiling fan is what they're doing in the Biden administration.
And this is funny because growing up in the Bay Area, where not very many people it's different in Los Angeles, it's obviously different in Arizona, Nevada, but if you go to the San Francisco Bay Area, most people do not have an air conditioner just because it doesn't get that hot. And my mom would always say, like in the summertime, if I wanted to go to the pool, she would say, well, or if I wanted to go to the beach, oh, we're not going, it's not 90 degrees. So they haven't even reached the threshold for me as a youth wanting to go swimming. They haven't even reached that threshold, and they're throwing all of this stuff at the wall. It almost seems to me like they're panicking. They're throwing everything at the wall, and that's why it's constant. Like it's look, how many times do we have to say it? it's always going to be life and death, right? I can almost guarantee that somewhere in that nonsensical pamphlet that somebody got paid to put together, that PDF, that if you don't do this, people are going to die. If it hits 90 degrees in Boston, somebody's going to die.
Well, to cover up the fact that 14 schools don't have air conditioning by saying there's a climate emergency so that you can say later, things are so bad, we had to declare 4 climate emergency. Like, it's all just compiling a paper trail for them to self-reference and circularly reference to justify their own existence.
Of
Because
course,
if that doesn't happen, then you might actually have to fix the air conditioning in these schools if you don't have this. But instead you can say the climate, look how many climate emergencies we had to, and then in 5 years somebody else is going to use that data. In Boston, Massachusetts, between 2020 and 2025, they had 32 heat emergencies declared. Therefore, give us $100 billion,
do you
and
have the
half of
clip?
that goes to Ukraine.
Do you have the clip of the doctor that I sent you or no?
Yes, from ABC News.
Yeah, just it's all a bunch of jargon. It's a bunch of Rona fear mongering, but just scrub through if you can. I mean,
Can't
it's
do
a
that on
long clip.
Instagram.
Yeah, you can. Maybe not on desktop.
Not on desktop, no.
Not on desktop. Okay, so it's probably not worth watching. I think it's like 5 minutes. It's a little bit long, but
Peter Chin Hong.
play the first couple seconds and just listen to what the COVID cases on the rise in the Bay Area. That's what the segment is.
Categorize this latest COVID wave we're seeing. Where does it stand now?
So I think we haven't seen the crest yet. It is more than we thought we would be seeing, but it is still very, small compared to where we were 1 year ago and where we were during the winter. So I think, it's not like we have to get things out of our mind and not think about COVID anymore, nor do we have to live in fear. It's kind of somewhere in between. Meaning that we can go out, but do aware that there are risks depending on who you are and what your immune status is.
So I said, he barely even speaks English. And this is the guy.
They're trying desperately so hard, and they can't even fake the numbers hard enough to justify anything.
And it gets worse, and we'll leave it here because we've been talking about this for far too long, perhaps. But at the end of that segment, he ties in a quote-unquote increase in Rona cases to climate change. It's almost like he got the complete and total package memo, right? None of it is his own findings. None of it can be questioned. Like, we can sit here and question it on the show, but again, you can't go to the hospital that he works at. You can't go to UCSF and say, well, what are the numbers looking like today? They're going to stonewall you. Those are things that can never be proven. They can never be questioned. And obviously that anchor lady, she doesn't know what's going on. She may or may not be completely evil. She may be as dumb as a box of rocks. She might not know what's happening. So she's just going to let this guy ramble on about, we need to still be careful, but we will not be scared. What are you talking about, bro? This is how stupid they think we are. And for him to end that to tie both of those things in together in this disgusting little agenda-driven burrito, it's all absolutely despicable. And I think on the plus side, most people can see through it. If you read some of the comments, and this is a local Bay Area news channel, so presumably most of the audience is from the Bay Area. People can see through it, and that's the very same channel that employs a guy named Reggie Aki, who pretends to be a straight news shooter, but he's obviously has his whole, he went on air and said that, if you don't want to respect your children's pronouns, then you're likely just not a bad person, or you're likely just not a good person. So it's all completely compromised. And on the plus side, I think people are seeing through it. But on the downside, the establishment does not care. They do not care that, what's the old saying? We're lying. They know we're lying. We know they know we're lying, but we're going to lie anyways. They're going to It's despicable.
In Florida, a black surfer says that he was subject to a a surfboard lynching.
Yeah, a symbolic lynching
lynching. So I was reading this earlier, and this guy is in Jupiter, Florida, Jupiter Beach, a popular surfing destination. And he says he was told he was not welcome, and he said they nailed his surfboard to a palm tree. Where's the photo of it here? There it is. They nailed his surfboard to a palm tree. He called it a lynching. Of course, they didn't nail people. Horrible as lynching was, they didn't nail people. They hung them. So he's a little bit
And they said
factually.
MAGA country. They
He
pulled
should have
lynch
said.
on me.
He should have said crucified his surfboard, but that wasn't racially charged. And he said this is how the real racism and hate is in Jupiter, Florida, from his account, Black Surfers. But people,
That's
he
not
is
his
looking.
account. Just because I
Oh,
looked
okay.
into I did a little bit of research on this because I just thought it was so bizarre.
Well, he's saying it's racist, of course, but they interviewed some other people who said it wasn't racist at all. And this is where it starts to fall apart. They said it has nothing to do with your race either. It has to do with your etiquette. One told him, you obviously do not seem to understand that still. No one is after you, man. None of us are racist. But he said this happened after I was physically pushed around in the water by two dudes grabbing my board and a third guy screaming, get off our beach. You're not welcome here. And the rest of it. And one of the things that I found odd, Eric, that poked a hole in his story is that Venus Williams lives there, who I get the tennis player, Serena Williams' older sister, who's amazing at women's tennis, but not quite as good as Serena Williams. She moved there and she got enough money to live wherever she wants. So for this to be true and her surfing there, why would she choose this racist place to live, Eric, is my question. When she's a famous black woman and she chooses a racist place to live when she can afford to live pretty much anywhere?
Yeah, well that's the simple answer, right? I mean that's sound logic, Andrew. That makes sense.
Well, what about this one? Before you say that, he did not call the police, but took the board down, stayed and surfed the whole day with a small board to show face. A few locals that were there apologized and agreed that it was wrong. They didn't agree that it was racist, and the police department said it is investigating. So you think things are so racist there that you don't call the cops and have these people charged with a hate crime? If this was somebody who said, I'm going to do this because this guy's black and we don't want black people here, that is an obvious hate crime, theft, and hate and desecration of their property,
well no.
and an obvious hate crime, but you don't call the police? You don't want to charge people who are this mean, Eric? I don't get it.
Well, first of all, there is no such thing as a hate crime. It's not real.
Well, legally there is.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird legal things that are not real. Like there's climate laws on the book. I mean,
it's
there's a lot
committing
of
a crime with also being mean. Is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And look, many years ago when I was in college, not because I grew up conservative or I grew up we used to make fun of hate crimes. Like back in the day, my roommate his quote unquote rap name was Hate Crime. Like it was a joke. And we all knew it was a joke. And we weren't politically active. We weren't talking about Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or any of the governor or whatever was going on at the time. We didn't talk about any of that. But we did know at our young age that a hate crime was stupid, right? So, yes, what you're saying about Venus Williams makes perfect sense, obviously. But it does get better because I took the liberty to go into Instagram and look at the account Black Surfers. And, of course, they are sort of this weirdo, agenda-driven surfing account. Or maybe they're not agenda-driven, but they just don't know what's going on. Maybe they smoke pot all day and they surf all day and they don't know what's going on. So when somebody says, oh, Black Surfer, they just look and maybe they've been out of the loop for the past decade. Who knows? But they say white supremacy is a sickness, a vile thing that rears its head in so many ways. Yeah, click that. Can we take a look at that there? So they do their whole little spiel, but then they actually pin a comment from the guy. What's his name? Sherlock Down, whatever. I forget his real name. But he literally says, he writes this whole long paragraph that I will sum it up for you. That
oh my god.
I've met lots of great people in Jupiter, Florida, including people or I've met lots of great people in Florida waters, including people in Jupiter. I did apologize for losing my cool at their beach. So he's apologizing for something he knows he did wrong. And people were saying he was, if you read all of the comments, I didn't read every single one, but I read a lot of them, that he was, I don't surf, so I don't know the etiquette, but he was kind of overbearing people and getting too close to people in the water and like almost knocked over some kids or something. So if he's not directly from the area, what I would compare it to is growing up, I went to the same golf course every day, right? If some outsider comes in and starts hitting his driver while you're still in the fairway, you would be like, bro, cool it. Or you know, there's a bunch of etiquette things, right? Like if you're on the putting green and you know, somebody starts intruding on you, you say cool it. So that's what I took from it, is that this guy is out there in the waves. He's not giving people the proper space. He's getting he's encroaching on children and stuff. Somebody told him about it. He lost his cool. He apologized for losing his cool and then said, I felt more accepted by the end of the day after I took the surfboard down. So all of this to say, I flew off the handle. I called it racist. I took the surfboard down, and it wasn't really racist after all. But that story will never get told because now we got Vlad TV and all of these people, Daily Mail or whatever, posting that black, and people in Miami or in Florida, they know the deal, bro. Like, yeah, are there some weirdo people? Sure, there are weird Nazis in Orlando marching over a bridge with their swastika signs, supporting Joe Biden and the Nazi regime in Ukraine. Sure, but is this guy a victim of racism? Absolutely not.
I like how they Googled person being beat with billy club at beach or something. There's no context. Maybe it is a racist event, but there's no context there at all. I think, Eric, that this makes you a gigantic wuss if you did this, because if you take out the claim of racism, let's just say he went to the beach and guys nailed his board, and they're the same race. They nailed his board to a tree. This is just you posting online about how other dudes were mean to you. It makes you.
But it turns out you were the jackass first, anyways.
Yeah, but to seek attention for this and to go online and be like, guys were mean to me, it makes you a complete and total bitch. Like if I went to go play basketball, which I'm known to do, basketball jersey on, and I come home and I go on my Instagram or my Twitter and I say, these guys were mean. Let's even say it was racist, because there have been black guys that I've played against in basketball who they call you white boy, they call you whatever. It just happens. And let's say I went home and I said, this group of black guys said that I suck at basketball. Happened to me 100 times in my life. And I'm posting about it, and I'm like, this is what
and
racism...
it turns out you actually do suck, so they were right the whole time.
This is what racism in basketball looks like, guys. 5 guys who are better than me in this sport were mean to me. We've got so much work to do as a community. It makes you look like a total loser. So even if we took that out of this, all you're saying on the base of this is, guys were mean to me. Give me sympathy. It's the male equivalent of, here's my ass, but don't judge me. That's what it is. This is what it is. It's a wussy guy going online and complaining because he wants attention. This is not a man. If somebody is racist to you and they did this insane racist crime to you, then get them charged with a hate crime or fight them or do something. Do something other than go online and cry about it. Like, this is the crybaby economy. And I'm so glad, Eric, in case you didn't watch UFC last night, that Sean Strickland is the champion now, because he is a guy. He beat Israel Adesanya. Nothing to do with race. I'm just glad he's the champion because he calls everything out. We're in this timeline now where Sean O'Malley and Sean Strickland, a couple of Seans, no coincidence there, are now UFC champions at 2 guys who call everything out and are not offended by anything at the exact right time that the world needs this. We now have 2 champions who are going to be forced to be interviewed by the media and call everything fake and gay. That's what's going to happen. And this is what we need right now in a world where adult men are, people were mean to me. I don't buy it. I don't like it.
But why? I mean, how could you be so desperate? Right? Everybody knows kind of,
because
like,
it's give me money. Black dot surfers want money and attention and followers.
Yeah. No,
Just
you're
like
right. Yeah,
Andrew.Eric wants money and followers.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, are they really this far out? Are they so desperate? Or are they so out of the loop that they really think that people, specifically in Florida, are going to say, "Oh, wow, those surfers are just so rude." I mean, dude, everybody knows. Everybody knows if you peel one layer off of this onion, it's going to be a completely different story. And yeah, this guy's absolutely pathetic. And shout out to Vlad TV, who has built this entire, because this is where I actually first heard about the story. So Vlad TV posted twice in one day that Derrick Rose was playing chess on his iPhone while he was at a Drake concert. Twice. So Vlad is just pounding the pavement. But when it comes down to it, remember he said, he used to do Scott Adams interviews all the time, like him and Scott Adams and Boozy. And he used to have some regulars on his platform. And when Scott Adams said the exact same thing that a black activist said, right? We can get in the weeds about how that black activists want to have separate graduations and separate neighborhoods and all this, even Killer Mike and all sorts of things. But as soon as a white guy says it, who literally says the same thing, he's like, "Oh, I'm never going to talk to Scott Adams again." Okay, bro. And Scott Adams he is sitting atop a huge pile of FU money, Vlad. He was helping you out. But neither here nor there. I also wanted to note, I'm looking at my Google homepage here, and it's just funny that our third decade of climate action, it's like it never stops, bro. Climate, racism, trannies, gays, it's just through the roof. Yeah, it's through the roof.
The C, the L, the I, the M, the A, the T, the E. It's climate. We're going to have to do... I was going to talk to you about this after the show, but I might as well just say it now. We need to review Diddy music videos because every time I turn on... How are we going to do that? We just watch Diddy music videos and we comment on it because they're so bad, Eric. The 10 minutes of Diddy. Why does he inject himself dancing with Jennifer Lopez to a salsa song in the middle of a rap music video?
Well, you sound like Suge Knight, but
what?
Well, yeah. If you don't want,
how are we going to do that?
You don't want the executive producer dancing
all up in your videos.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, everything's gonna get copywritten.
No, if you're reviewing it and you're not just playing the whole video, we'll set it up in advance. We won't do it live. We'll let it sit for a while, and if it gets copyright, we'll challenge it and we'll let it go through because you're allowed to do that. We did it with Making the Band. I think we should do it. Been Around the World is the one that I was talking about. I'd never seen the video. It's not good.
It was a different time.
It was. The dancing, though, was great. And then it moved into Lil Wayne music videos. And
I love this story, too.
And then it went to Uproar, where they're doing the special delivery beat and the dance and everything. So, Eric, this story hits close to home for me because it sounds like Canada, but you can't do it in the U.S. The governor of New Mexico says Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson's great. I mean, you can't help but laugh at Benny Johnson on YouTube because He's like, look what this is. This is ridiculous. I really like Benny Johnson. I don't know why, but I like him. Governor of New Mexico has just declared the First and Second Amendment does not exist due to an emergency. Under this legal theory, all of our rights are essentially eliminated. And we're going to hear from her. And the crazy thing about this is exactly what happened in Canada. Let's listen to her. Maybe she makes sense, Eric.
But your point is valid.
You took an oath to the
I love this story.
Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carrying license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time.
Pause it right there.
I can.
The faces of the guys.
Well, dude, she lets the cat out of the bag in 2 seconds there. First of all, there's no such thing as, yes, with one exception, if there's an emergency. What? No, it doesn't.
No,
that
doesn't work like that in America.
That literally is not the case. Was there a footnote at the bottom of the of the Well, no, it wasn't. That's the first thing. But she believes that you're stupid enough to believe that. Yes, you're right. With one exception, an emergency. And then what's the next sentence? And I said there's an emergency. What? And it gets worse from there. But this is where we're at. Like, who is giving her these talking points? Who is the man behind the curtain saying, they'll buy it. Go.
Well,
run
these
with it. Go,
guys
go.
next to her are, I'm guessing, one's her police chief of something or head of security or something. I can't read that. And then this guy just looks so perplexed, and they're both just like, "What are you saying, lady?"
Additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are
That's just the most insane thing. That's exactly what the Constitution is. And you said no footnote at the bottom of the Constitution. That's what it is in Canada. That's why and Australia, that's why they were allowed to lock people down in Canada. That's why they were allowed to put people in hotel rooms in Canada, camps in Australia, because in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it says all these things are subject to an emergency, which means you can do that as long as we've declared an emergency.
Yeah.
And if I got into power, a real man of the Conservative Party in Canada would get into power, he'd say, we're amending the gosh darn Constitution to take that line out. They'll never do that because they're cowards. But that's exactly why that's allowed. And that's why I always say we don't have a real Constitution. We have all these rights that can be taken away at any time, and they work. This woman seems to think that's how it works in America for some reason, who has a real Constitution, except for when we declare an emergency, we can suspend the Constitution. And what was the last line she just said?
I actually want to start it from the beginning. I'm sorry. Let's let it play without.
You want to let it play? Yeah, it's only a minute
we'll-
45.
Okay.
Yeah. But your point is valid.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carrying license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute.
That's the line.
There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. In this emergency,
This guy on the left.
this 11-year-old and all these parents who have lost all these children, they deserve my attention to have the debate about whether or not in an emergency we can create a safer environment. Because what about their constitutional rights? I took an oath to uphold those too. And if we ignore this growing problem without being bold, I've said to every other New Mexican, your rights are subrogated to theirs. And they are not, in my view.
Wait a minute. You're talking about crimes. There are already laws against the crimes, so how are their rights?
I got it. But again, if I'm unsafe, who's standing up
Guy
for that
wiping
right?
his face now.
If this climate is so out of control, somebody should do something. I'm doing as much as I know to do.
Madam Governor,
Yep.
do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. But here's what I do think. It's a pretty resounding message.
No, it's not. So this is the exact logic they used in Canada for lockdowns, vaccines, and everything. You don't have the right to make me sick. Your rights don't supersede mine. There's no rights superseding anything. It's just rights. And she thinks that you can just take them away. One, because she thinks it'll matter if you tell people that they can't carry guns for 30 days. Like, just like the reporter said, criminals aren't going to do that. But the fact that her excuse is because you might harm me, therefore your rights are suspended. It makes no logical sense. Legally in the United States, it makes no legal sense. And this is the ramblings of a woman who just wants to be able to say that she is God, essentially. When I say so, I have all the powers. And if you're bad, then I can take away your rights to punish a few people. I will punish the greater population to send a message to those criminals, and they're going to hear it.
Yeah.
I don't need no man.
Well, you're right. So, first of all, I mean, the entire argument hinges on something that's completely untrue. We've gotten through that, right? There is yes, except for in an emergency, verifiably untrue. Secondly, and secondly, the very next sentence is, and I've created an emergency. It's like, wait, so that's like Fauci saying, I am science. It's like, why didn't you just say, I make the rules now? It's the exact same thing. And then she says that we should be able to have this debate or something in there. She starts talking about It's like, really, lady? You don't want to have we both know you don't want to have a debate. You want to declare emergencies left and right and tell people exactly what to do. And if you think that it's an emergency, whatever happened in the state of New Mexico, and now you're declaring a state of emergency where people can't carry their guns for 30 days. Like,
and then everybody's just going to start robbing people because they won't have their guns.
No. Why not, instead of telling people not to carry their guns, just say, hey, state of emergency, no crime for 30 days.
That's right. That's
why
what
would
the first reporter said?
Yeah, why would this one work? Why not? Why can't you just go to San Francisco and say, hey, it is a state of emergency. Cars are being broken into. You can't park your car for 5 minutes to go get some snacks out of the gas station. It is an emergency. No more car break-ins.
Hate speech is a permanent declared emergency against being mean. If you think about it, if a governor was to say, we're declaring a language emergency from now on for the duration of this emergency, which could last 3 years, as we saw with COVID, for 3 years.
Well, it's coming back now.
Being mean is against the law. So hate speech emergency, you guys. We have to point out these stupid scenarios and apply the logic evenly so that, maybe you're just sitting there and you're being like, why can't we do that? And I feel like we have a call of duty to apply it, and everybody does, and good on those reporters, whomever they were, to try to apply this logic that this person's presenting, because she said we should have a debate over whether or not we can suspend rights, and that's just not what America is founded on, and that's not.
Well, she doesn't want to have a debate. Obviously, she doesn't want to have a debate. She wants to make the rules as she goes along. But more importantly, maybe not more importantly, but secondly, who are the gun-toting New Mexican patriots that are going to say, you know what, she's right. I'm gonna do exactly. There's that market. I don't believe exists. There's criminals who are going to have guns anyways. There's patriots who are going to have guns anyways and use them properly. And then there's going to be a bunch of libtards who don't have a gun anyways. There's not going to be a strapping 6'5" man with 5 kids who's taking care of the household and carries his gun in his truck and one on his hip, and he's going to say, you know what, she's right. I better listen to this weird little lady and put my guns in the safe for the next 30 days to save a life. That market isn't even there. Who is that for?
Somehow it's never their fault. Just like in Chicago, we have great gun control. It's the people bringing in guns from out of state. That's the problem. It's not New Mexico's fault. It's somebody else. They won't say it's Mexico's fault, even though that's probably where a lot of the illegal firearms come from.
We have to sue Kia and sue Hyundai.
Yes. I liked, what was this comment on one of our videos? There's nothing wrong with San Francisco. It's propaganda. As long as you learn not to leave your valuables in your car, you'll be fine. It's just like, I don't want to, that's not reality. You love what is it? You become okay with your slavery or something, my friend called that, where it's like, where I live, Eric, where you've been, maybe I shouldn't say what I do. Come on, criminals. I won't say what I do, which I'm comfortable with my safety, and it's not leave my door unlocked. I'm not that stupid, but let's just say you don't have to worry about your car being broken into. No one knows what my car is, so I guess it's fine. But you don't that's not a world you should just accept, where it's like smash. It was the Seth Rogen thing, where if you haven't had your car smash and grabbed, then I guess you just don't know what it's like to live in a big city. It's like, I've lived in big cities. And Toronto sucks a lot now, but you don't just expect your car to be broken into a few years ago. It's these policies that you guys allow that turn your city into this, and you don't realize it.
Well, the car break-ins are a very specific San Francisco problem. Something's happening there. I don't know whether it's gangs or what it is. That's a very, it happens in Oakland, it happens in Berkeley, it happens in other Bay Area cities, but it is a very, the same thing with the poop, right? Yes, there's poop in Oakland. Great. But it's just, it's very specific to San Francisco for some reason. And it's one thing for me, I'll admit, growing up, I thought it was all normal because I was a kid. So when you don't know anything else, if I take the BART or, the metro, whatever you want to call it, from Oakland to San Francisco and get out, and the train station is in the mall. So I go there and just shop. There was a point in time in my life when I was really young where I didn't even realize that people lived in San Francisco. It was just a shopping mall to me, right? I didn't know what was going on. Of course, the anchor retailer from that mall has left, right? That's how bad it's gotten. This is a 5-story Nordstrom anchoring the biggest mall in San Francisco, and they were just like, you know what? We're not doing it anymore. But that's not the point. The point is, when you're a kid and you're growing up and you see a bum sleeping outside the train station, or if you see, whatever, you see the elements that were half as bad then as they are today. If you see that and you think it's normal. What we have on this post is a grown man who doesn't even realize that there's other things out there. Or maybe he does. Maybe he does, and he's just been so brainwashed from 2 decades of smoking enough weed to like kill a horse or whatever, and among other things. But there's no way that a grown man can see this and say makes sense, right? You can you can realize there's a problem and say, you know what, my life's here, my job's here. I gotta just plug, I gotta get through it. I got a kid, I got a family or whatever. But there's nothing that can convince me that no, you're wrong. This makes total sense. Just don't leave your backpack in the car, idiot. It's like
imagine being a man and just being like, I'm just gonna deal with that. I'm just gonna deal with that reality of somebody breaking. No, do something, you wuss. Like, if I found out my car was being broken into in a place I regularly park, I'm staking out my car and probably busting some kneecaps. You gotta defend your property, and if you're not gonna do it physically, then defend it by voting with your feet, making some sort of political change, complaining at the store, like do something. Like,
but
even rolling over and dying is just like there. I got into
no. That's not dying, Tim. That's being compassionate.
That's living.
That's being compassionate. It's like we have to let these. Because I got into it with another guy. Yeah,
don't
exactly.
be mean, Eric.
Remember do you remember the video of the guy destroying a stoplight? He had climbed on top of the stoplight and started destroying it. And one of these guys who has a pretty big following, Bay Area following about Bay Area culture and stuff, was like, we just need more, literally just saying, oh, we just need more money. We need more community services. Dude, more community service is not going to stop this guy who's high on meth or something. I don't know what drug makes you climb up a streetlight and start kicking it down, like kicking it from the top down. But these people have been so brainwashed their entire lives spent in that little bubble. And it's exactly what the Gavin Newsoms and the Kamala Harrises of the world want. They want people who have been in this bubble. And I posted the picture of the possum guarding the garbage. Like, that's literally what it's like. It's like, nobody wants your garbage. And you guys are like, this is fine. No, it's not, bro. Like, it's really weird. You can't tell that it's weird, but it is. And don't get mad at people who have a difference of opinion. And about that specific comment, oh, just don't leave your backpack. That ship sailed. Don't leave your backpack. That backpack ship sailed a decade ago. I remember working in downtown San Francisco, and a friend of mine had her car broken into because there was a Chevy's birthday hat visible in the back seat. So the backpack thing, like, dude, if you leave a penny in the cup holder, if you leave an iPhone charger in the center console, it will likely be smashed. We're not talking. He wants to believe that it's just these tourists who are leaving $2,000 cameras in the front seat of their car. That ship sailed a long time ago. These people are out for anything. They don't even care because there's no consequences. So it's a very high reward, low risk, right? You can smash 10 cars, maybe get a kid's school supplies, and you make no money, but there's no risk. Nobody's going to stop you.
Apply this logic to a different crime. That's the last thing on this topic. And imagine it was like women being assaulted, and you apply this. What are you doing leaving your girlfriend outside? Yeah. What are you doing thinking that your kid can walk to school? There's
victim blaming.
You just gotta learn, bro, that you can't just be leaving women outside in the streets. NASCAR, we'll do this one quickly because it's just a little update. NASCAR removed their racial requirement from their diversity internship. We covered this last week, Eric. They simply removed the part that says you have to be Black, African American, the old everyone's from Africa, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, Latino, Hispanic. They removed that, but of course they didn't remove it from their other programs. Their diversity philosophy still exists. They still have the supplier diversity, which we talked about was the weirdest thing, how the supply chain needs to be from gay and lesbian and minority owned. If your tires aren't gay, then I won't have them on my NASCAR team. And then, of course, the driver and pit crew program still exists. NASCAR won't respond to anyone's request. I emailed a girl to have her on the show to talk about why she thinks this is a good idea. This is an Asian lady who promotes their pit crew diversity racism program, so to speak. They don't want to talk about like why is this a good thing is what I want to know. Why is it a good thing to divide by race? You'll never get an answer. NASCAR, everybody. Anything on that?
No, it's not a good thing. It's stupid. And they're not, I mean, are they trying to get like more? They're trying to get, no, I have nothing, bro. Like NASCAR. Okay. Here's what I do have. I'm sorry. Their whole thing is not going, doing that is not going to attract more black people. All you're going to do is alienate the fan base that you do have. Because if you have black fans, then they don't care. If you have white fans or Hispanic fans or whatever else, they don't want to see you pander. Mostly, again, where is the market of people? Where's the market of NASCAR fans who are like, you know what? I would watch this every single weekend, but it's just not enough black people changing tires. Like the market isn't there. So you're alienating your fans, and you're not bringing any new fans. So you're doing this to please BlackRock or whatever else going on. It's ridiculous. I did have something for that. Sorry.
It's some sick person's fantasy of like, we must force everyone, we must force everything to be multicultural.
Oh, dude,
unless it's white.
I like all.
What is this about?
Stories. This is not so much about the story as it is about the absolute state of journalism. Okay, I live on. Hold on. Let me read it.
Okay, go ahead.
I live on $50 a month in San Francisco. Here's everything I buy. That is provably false.
Samantha Ibrahim.
That is.
We can't get to her stuff. We don't have
I don't know. It doesn't open in a new tab or it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But that headline is and I like the New York Post, right? They will cover everything from the lopsided breast of an OnlyFans model to the Hunter Biden laptop and everything in between. They typically do pretty good work. But this is a provably false headline. So this obviously caught my attention because I am from the San Francisco Bay Area. But what's happening here is they win. They win this round because I clicked and I read the article. But what they're saying is this woman only spends $50 a month after rent, bills, and groceries. So what they're telling you is this woman makes just enough money to have a modest social life. Should have been the headline. Like it doesn't make any sense. So
saved a small fortune.
Yeah, right. Okay, so they don't even tell you what her job is or whatever, but look, rent, utility bills, and groceries are not included in the scanty sum. So what they're saying is this woman has a job just good enough to allow her to pay her rent, buy the necessities, and she eats ice cream instead of a fancy. I mean, it's just through the roof. And this really has nothing to do with the woman. She's made all of her following on TikTok with whatever, how many hundreds of thousands she has, and she's doing something right on that front. But this is about the quote unquote journalism or journalisming, as Ben Shapiro would say, that we've gotten to, where they would write a blatantly false.
Here's my recap of July.
Look,
watch one? Let's watch one.
Okay, let's watch one.
It took me to TikTok there, so I guess we got to watch it on TikTok, unfortunately.
Here's a day in the life of someone on a $17 budget for the month. My name is Alexis, and I'm currently on a challenge to spend $50 each month, and my remaining balance is $17.34 for July. I've talked before about how the use of my two-reality rule, in which you acknowledge both the negative and positive sides of a situation, but then solely focus on the positive, is an important mindset to embrace when budgeting. And today, I was really put to test with that rule.
Who the hell watches this crap, Eric? My God.
This is almost 2 million views.
Why does anyone care? This is the person in the friend group, Eric, that nobody wants to hang out with because they refuse to spend any money. Oh yeah, I'll come to this thing, but I'm not buying anything. I'll come to this thing, but I'm not going to eat. And they just sit there on the phone the whole time. Like, this is a loser. We
But
need
this
to
has
talk about people
this
being
has become
again.
how look, that aside, I'm not knocking her, whatever. She can live
I
on a
am.
budget in San Francisco, I don't care. This is about the New York Post posting a blatantly false headline to gain clicks about a woman living for $50 in San Francisco, which is obviously impossible. And if you read 3-4 paragraphs in, oh yeah, by the way, rent, bills, and groceries, that's not included, right? So after that, rather than going out to a fancy dinner, she bought an ice cream cone for $10 instead of going to dinner for $100. It's like,
Where does she go where she doesn't have to pay for the roller coaster?
she did have to pay for the roller coaster. That was $18.
Oh my god.
But look, it's just
Sorry, I can't
ridiculous.
go to that. I won't spend $30.
And then she says the influencer set aside an extra $25 a month of her normal expenses for flowers, weekend coffees, or candles. This money does not count towards her $50 limit. So now,
so it's all a lie.
so it's all a lie, and it's like this is the point I'm trying to. It's not about the woman. She has figured out a way to trick a million TikTok losers into watching her boring content, and she probably lives in a little junkie infested, hole in the wall somewhere in San Francisco. This is about the New York Post promoting a headline that is blatantly false, and when you read 2 to 3 paragraphs in, they tell you it's blatantly false in a roundabout way. You know what this reminds me of? Early on in the Rona hysteria, there was that article that I reference from time to time. I forget the outlet. It was like Pix 11 or one. It was a local New York station that said it was trying to scare the crap out of everybody. So 33-year-old Queens woman dies, contracted COVID, and then you read the article. It's like, well, she also had AIDS, chlamydia, and asthma. It's like, wait, so she was
Car accident people getting hit by a car, they die of COVID.
Yeah, it's like, but they just will blatantly lie right to your face. And this only caught my eye again because it says San Francisco. They could have said, oh, woman lives off $50 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it wouldn't have rang any bells. But this one, I'm like, okay, what does she live? I thought they were gonna say she was living in a park and she bought a tent. Like, I thought it was just gonna be a documentary about a homeless person or someone who lives at the YMCA or something. But it's literally just a fake story about a woman who, yeah, like you said, goes to things with her friends and doesn't pay for anything. Like, it's not a story.
Man survives eating beetles in desert in Joshua Tree. Wears the same pants that he soiled 6 days in a row.
Disgusting.
Somebody told me yesterday a story about how their friend peed their pants in their car. I won't say who it is, but shout out to that person who peed their pants in a car. My sister vomited in our backseat of our Saturn when we were kids. It smelled like vomit for weeks.
There was also the diarrhea plane. The diarrhea plane.
Yes, that I wrote about that. That's a good one. Diarrhea all up and down the plane. We're at 30,000 feet. Patreon.com/UOPod is where you can find the bonus podcast every week. For as low as like $6 US, you can get our bonus podcast each and every week. We got some advanced content coming soon from me when I went out and caused some shenanigans. My hometown has a lot of poo piles in it. I'll say that now. It's becoming San Francisco. Patreon.com/UOPod. And you get the bonus podcast every week at the end of the week. So you get us uncensored, bonus content, no shirt, no pants, no service. Shout out Katie in the comments who says, keep up the good work, guys. Please keep getting the message out. Katie, please subscribe to Patreon. Anything before we go, Eric Butler, now Florida resident?
Well, of course, buy my book. And secondly, I'll leave a cliffhanger. Maybe we'll learn about it soon. I'll tell you off air.
Wow. Only on Patreon will you get Eric's exclusive racist content where he talks about whites unending and how bad they are at basketball. You heard a bit of it earlier, how racist he was to me, assuming that I was bad at basketball. Patreon.com/YouWillPod. Thank you, everybody, on the audios and the videos.
Turn it up, Jordan.